Good evening, happy spring. Today we're gonna do something wild. I use white body paint and a very light mixture of yellow to create this sort of circular target from my forehead to my nose in the center of my face. I use that same color and lime green that I have, and I just outline that and make a very uneven border. And make sure to get in on all the nooks and crannies. I have one brown, it's called rose brown, so what I'm about to do is a mixture of that brown with either white or black. I use white and that rose brown now for that first initial line, which is going to be my center background, we'll call it, my center background mountains. These guidelines are going to represent the midground and the foreground mountains. With that same amount of white, I'm going to paint the closest to the center, closest to the light of the mountains. They're not really mountains, they're sort of just rocky ledges. Without adding any white there, I color in that midground, and I try and fill in those shapes, as rocky as I can. I do like to follow the contours of my face, I feel like it makes it more natural to me. Adding a little black here to do the foreground mountains, and I also kind of use it to sneak in that little contour that we talked about. Since I have it, I add in some darkness, I add in some highlights with a lighter version of this brown. At this point, I kind of went off the rails because I didn't really have a plan. I had my reference image and I was like, sure, rocks, let's do it. I use a cream paint here and a small fluffy brush to highlight and blend in that center point of my face. This is where all the light is coming from. Then I go in with yellow and create a ring around that white. You can sort of see what we're doing. We're creating light that's coming from the back into the front, which will be that canopy of trees. But because white is the lightest point, that's where we start, because we can't blend anything back into white. I take that yellow up and down my nose, sort of like a contour, but adding in more warmth because it was a bit cool green. I add it in various spots over my forehead, under my eyebrows, over my eyelids, creating ambience, creating layers, and creating warmth with that light. I then take a duo fiber brush and my lime green body paint, and I just go a little crazy here. I create leaves that are going to be a mess, but that are necessary for the background. The way that I've structured this is the majority of the leaves are coming from the outside of my face. I mean, you can see what I'm doing, but that's where my trees are going to stem from. I then mix my deep green with my lime green, and I have this mid-green variation, which is again my midground. It's the same idea that I did with my rocks, but with leaves now. Making sure that they overlap in all the right places, but not too much. Using my dark green body paint now, I bring my leaves through my foreground. These are going to be my more obvious, my more clear leaves, and I use them primarily to add to my contour, but also because we need depth. I take that lime green again and I try to add what's supposed to be moss on these mountains or reflections or whatever, but it gets better later. This is just me planning out my next steps. I've taken that rose brown again and black, and I've created some very light branches on the top of my forehead. The further down these branches go, the thicker they get, because the closer we get to the ground, that's where the trees get wider. These trees are coming out from, yes, the rocky ledges, but also between them. There's no real rule to this. Make sure that when you're doing branches, they're coming from behind the leaves and not on top of them. If they do come out from on top of them, that's fine. You can just use your duo fiber brush and go over it a little bit more. But this way it looks like the leaves are sitting on top of and in front of these branches. And the great thing with branches is that you can add them wherever you feel. You can add more if you wish, you can add less if you wish, and it's going to look cool no matter what. Now I use black and I try to shadow and separate some of the what will be rocks over my lips and chin. They're not rocks yet, it looks just kind of like I ate too much cake, but we'll get there. With that rose brown, I try to create shapes on my chest and shoulders to create more rocks. I realized pretty quickly that I cannot paint these ledges, so the plan changes. The plan changes from a rocky ledge to what is inevitably, I don't want to say mud, kind of want to say swamp or marshes, but whatever. Let's create a waterfall. So I use light blue body paint here, and I start at my bottom lip and I taper it down, making it look like I'm drooling a little bit. With my lime green body paint, since it's been mixed in with the brown, it's got that kind of tinge of yellow now, and I use it as a moss. which works out pretty well actually, so I do it on a lot of what I consider to be high points of these rocks, the points that would be closest to water, the points that would be closest to the light, because that's where moss would grow. And because I liked that idea so much, I took it on a big fluffy brush and I just blotted it everywhere. Well, not everywhere, mainly on the inside of those ledges. I did take it across my collarbones and my shoulder bones and everything, because I do like to highlight those access points. Then I take my deep green and I do the same thing on the shadow spots, because I mean, moss has shadow too. Here I've taken my fluffy brush and my deep green and I'm dry blending a lake. I make sure to get these sides with my black body paint as well. I'll blend it all together later, but I wanted to get that covered. The black on the outside of the lake, the green more to the center. I've taken my deep green now and that same fluffy brush to use in between the dark black color and the light lime color, and we're going to create that gradient as well. With this part, I've taken my duo fiber brush and a little more watery consistency to my lime green body paint, and I'm creating what is a reflection on this little river, a reflection of the trees that I've painted on my face from that light. I do a couple layers of this, the first layer being the widest, the second layer being a little narrow, and the third layer being mainly that collarbone line again. And then I go in with a little bit of white. What I like about this is it's white to start with, but the more I play with it, the more it becomes lime green yellow, and it works really, really well for what I wanted to do. Back in with my foundation brush and my blue, I go over it because it's sort of blended into the background and we can't be having that. We need to show that that's water. I take it down my chin, down my neck, and I follow the shapes that I've made to make it look like it's flowing down a rocky waterfall. And then, so we know what we're looking at, I've created soft ripples in that lake. Here I've taken a fine detailed brush and light blue again, and I'm going over what would be the highlight points of these ripples. And I've accented parts that are on my neck, and I go up on my chin a little bit later as well. And then I take a smaller defined brush and I use white to accent higher points. So there's 3 different levels of that blue as well, of those ripples. I have a lime green cream paint, which I'm using here to accent my collarbone again, and my brown body paint that I'm using there with my brush to accent the shadow parts, to make that look like it's sticking out a little bit more, kind of like tree logs that have fallen over and have grown moss on them. I tried to add a little more depth because it started to feel a little muddy, and my trusty Gemini palette, which was perfect for this look. I start off by taking a fluffy brush and the color Leo. With this look, I don't really blend so much as I blot onto my eyelid. I didn't want to have any of the body paints flaking off, so I did mostly blotting and some slight blending to get it even as I could. But with stuff like this, you don't have to get it too even. I then take Bonnie and just darken the outsides. Yeah, you don't have to have it too even. This is a very fluffy kind of look. The point isn't to accent the eyes, the point is to accent the body painting. Then I put my finger in a color that I really think is pronounced mochi, but if it's called mochi, my bad. And I blot that on my eyelid with my finger, mainly the inner and middle parts of my eyelid, and a little bit underneath to have it balanced. We're going to add a little winged liner, we're also going to line the waterlines. Mascara is useful as well. Lashes would be good, but my lashes for some reason don't stick on my body paint, so... And then the color goals. With the color goals, I just very lightly add some shimmers above and under my eyes, and I also add some in the middle of my nose there just to kind of highlight it a little bit. Then I take Leo again, and this kind of works to close everything off together to give it a sort of edge, like contouring. Again, this is all contouring. I take Gemini here because why not, and I highlight some of the rocks. And back with goals again, I decided that I was going to do some normal highlight because why not? Why not? It was so great getting back into this, getting back into the feel of body painting again. If you haven't watched my last video, I was in Greece for 2 months, which is why I haven't uploaded, but I am back and it is spring. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!